Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're jumping into the really high-stakes world of financing massive engineering projects. Now, most of us, we tend to think of finance as, well, just a cost, right? It's a number on a spreadsheet. But what if I told you it's actually one of the most powerful strategic tools you have to make sure a project actually succeeds? Let's dig into that. So, let me start with a question for you. When you're trying to fund a huge project, what's the one thing that everybody obsesses over? It's the interest rate, isn't it? Get the lowest rate possible. But what if there's something else, something way more important for whether that project lives or dies? And that brings us to what I like to call the myth of cheap money. It's this idea we all have that the number one goal, maybe the only goal, of project financing is to hunt down the absolute cheapest capital we can get our hands on. But that obsession, it can blind us to what really creates value in the long run. So, the standard thinking goes something like this. Bank debt looks way cheaper than equity because, equity investors demand a much higher return for taking on more risk. So the logical next step seems pretty obvious. Just pile on as much debt as you possibly can. And while that's not wrong on the surface, that way of thinking misses a massive, massive opportunity hidden inside your financial structure.
This is where we need a big mental shift. We need to stop thinking about just getting capital and start thinking about designing a financial architecture. It's a total game changer of a concept, and it's actually based on a classic, super powerful theory from the world of finance.
And here it is. Way back in 1958, these two geniuses, Modigliani and Miller, made a groundbreaking point. They said that just shuffling money around, taking risk from an equity guy and giving it to a debt guy, doesn't magically create more value. The project itself doesn't just become better or cheaper to fund because you moved the shells around.
Okay, so if just moving risk and money between columns on a spreadsheet doesn't work, then what does? Right? How can financing actually make a project more likely to succeed? Well, the answer is in how we think about what financing is for. And this is the key: financial architecture. Seriously, think of it like a blueprint for a building. It is the deliberate design of your project's funding, not just to get the cash in the door, but to strategically give out specific risks and, this is the most important part, create really powerful incentives that get every single partner pulling in the same direction.
So, let's get practical. How does this actually play out in the real world? Well, it all comes down to understanding that debt and equity aren't just two different flavors of money. No, they are strategic tools, and they're designed to manage totally different kinds of risk and to drive completely different behaviors.
And this chart just breaks it down perfectly. Equity, that is all about managing the upside. The potential payoff is unlimited. So you give equity to the people who can make the project a massive success: your operators, your contractors. Debt, on the other hand, is all about preventing the downside. A bank's reward is capped. They just want their loan paid back with interest. So their whole game is to stop a disaster from happening, which makes them perfect for managing those downside risks. It all boils down to one super simple but incredibly powerful rule. You have to give a specific risk to the person or the party that is in the best position to actually control it. It's not about who has the deepest pockets to absorb a loss. It's about who can actively stop that loss from happening in the first place. And here's what that looks like. Who can best manage the risk of construction delays or cost overruns? Well, the contractor, of course. See you build the financing so they have skin in the game. Who's in control of how well the project runs every single day? The operator. And who has the muscle to deal with political risk, like a government changing the rules of the game? A big, powerful group like the World Bank. The financial architecture makes it crystal clear who's responsible for what.
All right, let's pull all this together. What's the strategic bottom line here? Why does thinking like a financial architect really matter for your next big project?
Because when you design it this way, your financing does so much more than just cut a check. It actively shapes the incentives for every single partner to bring their A game. It makes ownership and control totally clear. It makes the whole project tougher, more resilient to shocks. It even gives you a roadmap for what to do if things go wrong. Basically, it turns finance from just being a cost into a powerful tool to govern the project and drive it to success.
So, the next time you're looking at a financial plan, I want you to ask yourself this one question. Is this thing just a budget that's designed to get the cheapest money possible, or is it a strategic blueprint carefully engineered to align everyone and build a project that is truly set up for success?